The chair will now recognize himself for 5 minutes. At our first hearing of this task force, which was held last month, we had some testimony on the question of the Iraq-Afghanistan Threat Finance Cell. And because that was mentioned again here today, Professor Realio's testimony, I'll ask the question. The professor perhaps can, if you could respond to it, and then like to actually hear the response of the thoughts of each of the panel witnesses. And the question is whether or not a concept similar to the Iraq and Afghanistan Threat Finance Cell, if replicated in Latin America, could that be an effective means to combat these terror, criminal, hybrid franchises that operate there in Latin America?
Well, one of the lessons learned, unfortunately, from our experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan has been that interagency and, more importantly, collaborative fusion cells have been extremely effective, particularly when you're designing a list of targets and, more importantly, harvesting information that comes of a financial and economic nature to actually incorporate it within our broader set of understanding these adversaries. In terms of Latin America, it would depend on different groups. Also, more importantly, since a lot of the activities are drug trafficking related, as well as human trafficking related, we would have to try to figure out which of the agencies would be the most suited. So it's the concept of actually creating a task force. In the case of post 9/11, the joint terrorism task forces that were established by the FBI are a model that have been studied by many academics, such as myself, as well as other ways to actually leverage the know-how and then, more importantly, the resources that each of the agencies brings to bear. One other one, which we did not discuss today, is a very effective one under U.S. Southern Command, which is the Joint Interagency Task Force South. It's called JIATA South, based in Key West, Florida. It actually is interagency with all the uniformed services, but even more importantly, the intelligence and the law enforcement agencies represented there, as well as full-time liaison officers from other countries. Their primary mission is countering illicit trafficking, which already reflects the way that they're changing the look of instead of it used to be just drug trafficking, they're actually encountering a lot of precursor chemicals as well as, sadly, alien smuggling going through there. So there's a better way of how we can use these lessons learned and then, more importantly, apply them to what we call emerging threats.
Dr. Asher?
Well, my experience at first, Selena is absolutely spot on. I do feel, though, that you need almost like an untouchables type approach to this stuff. I mean, you need a group of people that are in charge to go after the money and to have global authority to roam. The money goes global. You see more money being laundered for the Sinaloa drug cartel and Hezbollah today in China probably than anywhere else. But we also, as I noted in my testimony, have a massive amount of laundering right through the United States, right through the purchase of used cars. We've designated this. We've identified it to banks. And guess what? People are still accepting billions of dollars a year in payments from places like Lebanon for buying used cars that are going to West Africa. We need a law enforcement top-down task force approach. And the law enforcement professionals and the prosecutors need to be held accountable for results. We know, based on overt evidence that's been presented in court, that this is going on. So why is it still happening? We also need an approach and so I think the task force approach that you're interested in is very important, but I don't think it just be regional. I think it needs to be almost like threat specific. So Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda. Why have we not applied the racketeering, the RICO charge against Al-Qaeda? It's a racket. Terrorism is against the law, and the reason it would matter on a financing level is we could go after, through long-arm capabilities, all their assets all over the world. And we have more than enough countries in the world that endorse terrorism as a national level crime.
Dr. Asher, on the issue of trade-based money laundering, which you talked about in your testimony, what's your assessment of current U.S. policy?
Absolute interest and unfortunate ineffectiveness. And it's not for lack of effort. I mean, everybody I've worked with, I've had a great honor and pleasure to work with. There are great people in our government. There is awareness of these issues that we never had before. There's awareness that we should go after the financial networks as a means to tackle the whole network. It's a revolution. I'm very proud of it, but it's not working. There's more Hezbollah money being garnered in the United States today than there was in 2011 when we took the action. So we have to look at charging strategies like RICO. You know, we need to approach these things more like organized criminal rackets than just terrorism. Terrorism almost honors these people. And we need to impose our OFAC penalties with much greater impunity. and cut our financial system off when necessary from threats.
At this point, I'm going to recognize Ranking Member Mr. Lynch for 5 minutes.